Okay, so I'm checking in. It's day 4. It's really dark, and I apologize, but I don't have a lot of power here because everything is completely shut down, and I'm working as best as I can with what I have. So I have a couple of floodlights, and I wanted to highlight this wall specifically because this is my outside wall, and I was looking at the design of the barn, and again, I never built a barn, so I'm not really being judgmental. I'm just trying to figure out structurally how does this barn support itself, particularly on this outside corner. And if you look up here, you can see there's a 2x12 that runs on the outside from this post to this post. That's the front right corner. And that sits underneath this top plate, which is a 2x10. And all of the joists for my entire barn run directly across this top. And so they're really supported mainly by this outside plate, which is insane, actually, in my opinion. But again, I haven't really done, I'm not an engineer. So all I'm saying is basically I took away this front 2x12 right here to rip off this wall. And I realized how structurally important it is to keeping this wall or the top floor flat and level. And you can actually see kind of above my finger here from left to right, it does look like it's kind of sagged a little bit. It could be the camera, but in my opinion, it does look a little low. So what I'm going to do is this. This door here had king and jacks, but they are not structural at all. In fact, none of them, the king studs didn't even run up to the top of the structure. And so I cut them right off. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add a third 2x6 to the outside of these, and I'm going to run that all the way up. Then that way I can run new jacks that run across the top of the door. I'm going to fully support that with some new studs, and then I'm going to do the same thing along the rest of this wall. It's not necessarily going to be a brand new structure. It's just going to add some new support. But while I have this whole entire wall ripped off, I may as well start fresh. On top of that, down here, down below, this whole board underneath was completely rotted. I mean, it's just time and termites, and I don't even know if they were even pressure treated wood down there. So I've added a new plate down there. Now I can build from the ground up. This onion is getting put back together instead of peeled back even further. So let's go ahead and see how this wall gets completed. Behind me is the wall, the exterior wall. And if you look up top now, you can see basically I have a brand new header that I put up there. Again, if anything, it's just adding some extra load-bearing weight support to the center outside section where the door was. I mean, I'm just looking at just a few things on this door jamb. I mean, even a small attempt at making a header, there's about an inch gap here on each side. Plus there's these little spacers of 2x6 that are placed on top. I have just no idea what the actual functionality for that would have been. And actually some of these studs don't even reach the ground down here. So, I mean, again, I'm just trying to make it better. So what I did, I put the outside king studs on there, and then that goes up to the top, and then some of that weight then is distributed down and supported on the sides. Then you could see on top, again, this isn't fancy. I'm just putting blocking across the front here. Those don't go all the way to the back. They're not fire stops. They're just nailing for the sheetrock when and if I put it up. And then if you spin this around over here, I have this wall essentially done. You can see I put spray foam on the perimeter. That's going to reduce any exterior airflow. Plus it'll ensure that the critters won't try to sneak in through any cracks. But more importantly, it air seals that outside so that I can actually put insulation back on this side of the wall. Therefore, now I am over here, and I had wanted to do this in the beginning anyway, but now that I have the walls open and I have to run the electrical, I'm just doing this now. So here was a pre-existing door jamb. This was the opening for this door to go upstairs to my wood shop. This was too small. It did not give me enough width to be able to bring in large pieces of wood because you can see the keyhole for my upstairs is right here. And so anything over 8 feet wouldn't fit. So what I decided to do is I'm cutting back this door jamb back to this next step. I still have almost 7 feet clearance up to the top of the stair. So that'll give me plenty of space. I'm also gonna have to make new steps and add new steps. So those are gonna have to come out here. I'm not doing that now, but I do need to move this wall mainly because I'm putting new electrical here, and this is where the light switch is going to be to turn on my lights upstairs. So that's why I had to do this now. So basically I laid out what I was going to do from the beginning. This is going to be a stud. There's then going to be a king stud here, mainly because I'm also supporting the weight that's up here. And again, right now, there's really nothing supporting this beam that is carrying the weight across the opening, or this beam that's coming across here. So I'm doing just quick math, and I'm not engineering this. I'm just basically looking at the structure and figuring out how can I add it and make it better, because what it was before, it was working, but I'm going to make it better because I don't want to have to do this again and things settle and so on. So here it is. Here's a stud. I'm going to put a king stud here, and then right next to that is going to be the jack for the main header that will carry this weight across the top of the doors. And then I will recreate or fabricate whatever, a brand new door that will go on this wall. So for the most part right now, I am basically done with all of the framing and building of the walls. Now is a fantastic day because I'm finally able to start running the new electrical. So I am basically ready to start putting in the electrical, and I just want to make a quick disclaimer. The channel that I created here is called Jesse Lee Woodworking, and that is because the main purpose of my channel is to show people how I make and build things. I am not an electrician. I am not a licensed contractor. I am just a homeowner that has a lot of experience through my past life, and I do a tremendous amount of research and check a lot of sources before I start to do anything. So with that said, behind me is my panel. It looks 1,000 times better than it did before. And if you remember, all of the power that was coming from my home basically came up on the 4 cables, and they were not in conduit. So I put them in conduit, attached it properly to my electrical panel, and now I have my panel now remounted on the wall. I also have some foam behind here, some rigid foam that's going to give a nice barrier, a nice thermal barrier here. And again, I'm basically containing this box in a way that is much, much easier to access. I haven't completed it yet, but basically I'm going to be adding in a new stud here on the side that will then allow me to basically have a panel that I can access from here to the ceiling, that I can open up almost like a door. I haven't exactly figured that out yet, but again, it's not the purpose of this right now. Right now is basically I need to get power back in this place. And now that I have all of the studs and everything run, I know exactly where my cables are going to go and how they're going to go through them. And that is the main point. You don't want to lay cables out and then have to do woodwork around that. So right now I'm basically following the standard profile that you would if you were building a brand new home. I have up the studs, I have up my general framing, and now I'm going to start laying the electrical. So another point that I'm going to make is the changes that I made here are for the better and for the future. So I decided that anything that is going to be in this room, and until it lays within some kind of horizontal run in a rafter or inside of a concealed wall, it is going to be with MC cable. And I basically have two sets of cable here. I have 15 amp and 20 amp service for basically the entire barn. So I have metal clad cable now that will run exactly like I just said through all of the walls. Specifically down here, it will supply all the power to the boxes here. And then the MC cable will run all the way up, and in some of the furthest places, like the lights that are on the top peaks of the front and back of the barn, that MC cable will run the entire length, mainly because I go between exposed area and unexposed area. And in some of these places, it's inevitable that there will be some rodents at some point. So they will not be getting through that. So that is the process I'm going to follow. The very first thing that I want to do is get power inside of this tack room. So that's where I'm going to go start. And then from there, I will work my way back up to my wood shop so I can finally start re-insulating that the rest of this week. So let's go ahead and get started. I hope that's a good overview, and let's see how this thing pans out, because I am so stoked to finally get this thing started. Okay, I am about a week now into this whole process. Basically a week since I got a nice shiner on my eye when this all started. And I am so super pleased to report that I am finally done with the electrical work in the entire barn. Behind me is my panel. I've put in all 9 of these circuits. Basically, I've rewired this entire building, essentially basically to most of the feed spots where all of the outlets drop down in the upstairs. And then basically everything inside of this particular area in the tack room has been completely redone. I've used over 500 feet of MC cable between 14 and 12 to 15 and 20 amp service. And so now this is the panel behind me, and I am so happy with how it turned out. Everything has worked exactly how I had hoped. And so I wanted to just show you what the finished product looked like. And so this will remain here on my wall. And then eventually I'm going to put some insulation around this entire tack room. But right now I'm focused on getting my wood shop ready. And you can see basically now I have the blocking on the left-hand side just for some nailing. And then also I have all of the feed wires that go all the way up, straight up through the top of the wood. Again, just some basic electrical. I have nail plates on all of the pieces of wood, especially where all of these feed lines are. You are not necessarily required to have strike plates on the vertical runs, but I'm an idiot and I never know where I'm gonna nail stuff, so I just put them in anyway, just to cover all my bases. What you can see is I have a majority of the lines, they go across this beam, and then they're fed down through this wall, which I left as is. If you remember, on this side of the wall, I had framed basically everything up. And over here, I left that cavity mainly because, look I still have quite a few cables that run through there, but it is not a spider web anymore. I've labeled everything, and so I know where every connection point is. And then more notably too, what I've done is I added this 2x4 plate across the front, because that was where actually I ran into a problem with some of my with some entry points for the mice, which was right along that kind of that gap there. And also that was like a molding spot, so it made it a real pain in the neck. Now I can just build down from that area. The second thing is that I definitely was able to find out where these mice were coming from, and primarily they're coming from the holes that you're using to drill for your cables. So now that it's MC, I'm not worried about it, but I do want to close that gap. So yes, I did go crazy with the foam, but it is all for good measure. You can see I put it in all of the entry points on both the top plate as well as the entry for the bays in between each of the sections of wall. And that includes basically every single entry point. I also did it for the cables, so I did it from the top down, so there's not a ton of foam sticking out of the bottom here. But essentially I used the foam to seal up every corner, every place where there's potential for entry, and really shored this place up. So I'm super stoked because this is basically done and I have 100% power. The only thing I ended up doing was adding one 20 amp specific dedicated service for my Woodshop, which I wanted to have one dedicated outlet that separated from all the rest of the outlets, mainly because I could be using 1, 2, maybe even 3 tools at the same time, and I didn't want to overload the circuit. So for that one specifically, I put a GFI outlet directly up there, and that will be the connection point for my 120 amp line that I ran. Basically I returned everything back to the way I found it, and it's 1,000 times better. So that is the recap on the electrical. In fact, I also was able to get the recessed lighting all set up and on a switch, so I can't wait to show you that part. But for right now, what I am trying to do is finalize this space here, and I'll zoom out as much as I can. But this is the entryway for my stairs to go up to my woodshop. And you can see this space here is the space that I'm widening, plus I'm making this go up one more step. I'm not gonna do the stairs now, but what I am gonna do is finish off this header up. A real quick recap, I have about 95% of this done. I am still missing the jack that I'm going to put on this side, plus I got to fur this out just a tiny bit just to give me a little bit more stability. But I got all the way to doing that and realized I hadn't even put up this 2x12 still on this exterior wall, and I had to go up first. It's not easy putting up a 14-foot beam by yourself, but I have figured it out over the years. I used a block on one end and then I secured it on the other end. So sometimes you get really creative as one person, which is basically how I've done everything around here. So sometimes you got to think outside the box, and I got it in place, giving me a ton more stability and strength for the floor above. Now the doorway is nice and wide. Again, I got to do a platform, but gonna give me 6.5 feet of clearance, which I'm only 5'8". I don't care who else comes up to my wood shop. I can make it up there, and all that big pieces of wood can too. Also, you watch me hand pound all of those size 16 3-inch nails by hand. Yeah, I'm a little crazy sometimes, but I'm also a little bit lazy when it comes to trying to lug around my compressor. So I hand pounded these, and also I figured out how to do it with both hands. So one time where the ambidextrous actually works out in your favor when you hand pound 3-inch nails, and about 40 of them. So I got them all into place. This thing looks 1,000 times better. It actually looks like a real structure and a real frame. So if you want to learn how to frame, that's some basic framing for you. I even got a nice little 2x6 header up there. It's carrying all this weight on this side and from the opening above. So I'm going to add a ton more stability with that. Once I get those extra pieces on the side of the door, this will be all set, and then I can move upstairs and start insulating.
But for now, I'm gonna take a break. It's hunting season and it is a beautiful, nice cold day. So I deserve a little bit of a break. Keep on watching, check back in, and I'll see you on the next part of the series.